Who dares to face the crushing weight of total defeat? Almost no one, naturally. Every fiber of our being recoils at the thought of surrendering to powerlessness. It feels like standing on the edge of a cliff, glass in hand, staring into the abyss of our own making. We've twisted our minds into a labyrinth of obsession, where the only escape seems to lie in the hands of some unseen force. To admit this feels like a death sentence, a shattering of pride, a collapse of the self. This is a bankruptcy unlike any other. Alcohol, once a companion, has become a merciless creditor, draining us of every ounce of self-reliance and every shred of resistance. It demands payment in full, leaving us hollow, broken, and stripped of dignity. When we finally accept this stark truth, we stand naked in our humanity, utterly defeated. Yet it is in this moment of complete surrender that something extraordinary begins to stir. Upon stepping into the rooms of AA, we are met with a paradox. What once felt like the ultimate humiliation, admitting our powerlessness, becomes the foundation of our rebirth. It is as if we've been handed a chisel and told to carve a new life out of the bedrock of our defeat. This admission, though agonizing, becomes the first step toward liberation. It is here, in the ashes of our old selves, that we begin to build lives of purpose and joy. But this transformation cannot begin without first embracing our devastation. No alcoholic can truly benefit from AA without first kneeling before the truth of their weakness. Without this humility, sobriety is a fragile thread, and happiness remains a distant mirage. This is not mere theory. It is a truth forged in the fires of countless lives, a cornerstone of the AA experience. The principle is clear. Enduring strength can only grow from the soil of admitted defeat. This is the taproot from which the entire AA fellowship has sprung, a living testament to the power of surrender. Yet, when first confronted with this idea, most of us balked. We came seeking confidence, only to be told that confidence in the face of alcohol was a liability, a false hope. Our sponsors spoke of a mental obsession so cunning, so powerful, that no amount of willpower could break its grip. They described an allergy of the body, a cruel twist of fate that ensured our destruction. Alcohol, they said, was a tyrant wielding a double-edged sword. First, it enslaved our minds with an insatiable craving. Then it ravaged our bodies with an unrelenting compulsion. Few, if any, had ever escaped this dual assault alone. The statistics were clear. Alcoholics rarely recovered without help. This had been true since the dawn of time, since the first grapes were crushed. In the early days of AA, only the most desperate souls could stomach this bitter truth. Even they struggled to grasp the depth of their hopelessness. But those who did, who clung to AA's principles like a drowning man to a life preserver, often found their way to recovery. This is why the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous focused on those at rock bottom. Many who were less desperate tried AA but failed, unable to admit their hopelessness. Over time, this began to change. Alcoholics who still had their health, families, jobs, and even material comforts began to recognize their condition. Young people, too, joined the ranks, spared the decades of suffering that others had endured. But how could these individuals, whose lives seemed intact, admit that their lives were unmanageable? The answer lay in raising the bottom. By sharing our stories, we showed that long before we hit rock bottom, we were already out of control. Our drinking was not a habit, but the beginning of a fatal progression. To skeptics, we said, "Perhaps you're not an alcoholic. Try controlled drinking, but remember what we've told you." This approach bore fruit. Once the seed of truth was planted, it took root. After each binge, the doubters would wonder, maybe those AA folks were right. Eventually, they returned, convinced. They had hit bottom, just as we had. In this way, alcohol itself became our greatest advocate. Why this insistence on hitting bottom? Because few will sincerely embrace the AA program without it. The remaining 11 steps demand attitudes and actions that no active alcoholic can fathom. Who wants to be rigorously honest, to confess their faults, to make amends? Who cares about a higher power, let alone meditation and prayer? Who is willing to sacrifice time and energy to help others? The average alcoholic, consumed by self-centeredness, sees no appeal in this, unless it becomes the price of survival. It is only under the lash of alcoholism that we are driven to AA. There, we confront the fatal nature of our condition. And there, in that moment of desperation, we become as open-minded as the dying. We stand ready to do whatever it takes to break free from the merciless obsession. In this surrender, we find the seeds of our salvation.